Hello Canadian gardeners, how are you guys doing today? Knowing really far away at the beginning of this video, but I actually wanted to show you just the sheer size of this plant. Now, I know you're probably already saw the thumbnail and thought, yeah, I already know how tall it is. This plant I had since it was very, very little. And so I'm actually very proud of the size it has become, and it could be taller if I put it all the way straight up, but it's touching the roof, so it's naturally sensing the kind of the roof area and starting to twist and bend down. So if I flip him a little bit, you'll see that he's kind of doing an S now. So this plant is well over 12 feet tall. I'm about 5'8", 5'9". So yeah, he's a ginormous plant. So today's video, we're going to be talking about exactly what it takes to keep this plant alive in a cold climate or just in an indoor setting in general, because I know a lot of Canadians and just people from the northern regions of the United States have a lot of issues with fiddle leaf figs indoors. And I just want to show you guys exactly how easy it is. Okay, so that's a little better. You guys are a little closer now. If you guys are new around here, my name is Ashley and I'm a soil scientist with a plant science minor. And on this channel, I like to take that science and apply it to gardening, but also plant care. So that includes houseplants. If you like the sounds of that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I have new videos 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like clockwork. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. Your feedback is awesome, how much you guys are enjoying my videos. If you could let me know in the comments below what zone you're in and what you're into. If you're into houseplants, if you're into outdoor gardening, and just kind of anything you want to learn. If you've been around here long enough, you know that I eventually get around to almost everyone's questions. And sometimes I even feature you and your question in your plant photos in my videos. So I have a few coming up that I've been working on for different subscribers and different, we're gonna call ourselves the garden scientists. That's what our clan is called now. I've decided that. We're the garden scientists. Official. You don't need a university degree for that. Hope that encourages you to ask questions, because honestly there's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to gardening or plant care, because everyone's situation is different. In this video you can actually use a lot of the tips and the things I talk about to apply to both your houseplants but also your outdoor plants as well, because some of the things I'm going to talk to actually cross over. It's just that they're more naturalized or more common in this beast that I have behind me. So some of the common issues we're going to go over in this video are the red spots that you see on the new growth and whether or not that will disappear over time, how to deal with a monster like this, and how to avoid the lean for as long as possible. I actually just gained this lean in about the last year. The first 5 years of its life in my house, it wasn't doing this, so this is very, very new growth here. Leaf dropping, holes in leaves, yellowing leaves, common pest problems, and what to expect when you first bring this plant home. And then obviously the basics such as watering, fertilizer, repotting, all that stuff with a science spin on it. Come on, you knew that was coming. You knew that was happening. We like to use science to explain stuff, so let's get into it. So as you guys can tell, this plant is massive, like huge. Yeah. And it wasn't always that way. It used to be very short and very tiny. I think it probably was about 3 feet, like 2 feet when I initially was gifted it. And now it's turned into an absolute monster. So this was purchased just before the fiddle leaf craze, when everyone started going pretty wild over them. So it's relatively inexpensive when I initially got this plant, but I clearly gave it too much go-go juice because she's big. So I eventually, I will have to cut him. It's just simply not going to work. You can't have a plant this tall leaning this way and then starting to curve. The reason why I'm trying to get him to start spiraling actually is because I don't want him to keep going this way, because I don't want the pot to tip over, because this foliage, the sheer mass of this is very heavy, and eventually it's just going to pull this pot over. So I'm hoping to curve it just a little bit, and if I can keep him alive while he's doing that, and happy and healthy without him tipping over, eventually I'll have to start chopping off the top. So that is the reality with these plants. It is a tree. It is a very large tree. I'm in just a normal sized Canadian house. I think we have like 10-foot ceilings up here. Nothing, we don't have vaulted ceilings or anything crazy, but I do love him. I do want to keep him, so I'll have to cut him back. But when you want to try to keep these trees straight, or even the little bushes, if you want even growth, you're going to want to make sure you rotate the pot. And I used to do this on a very regular basis, and I actually still do, even though I have this thing coming off the side. So what I do now is I actually turn it so that this head, the kind of that big bushy head, is always facing the window or turning away from the window, depending on what direction I want the head to lead in. So I'll show some B-roll shots of exactly what's going on here, but it's kind of just making a half moon right now. It's getting to the point where I'm going to have to clip it. Otherwise I run the risk of losing some of my foliage. Or some of my sunlight capture that I'm having on this plant. When you initially bring this plant home into a cold climate or into a Canadian household, you're going to notice that the leaves fall off, and that is completely normal. When I initially got this guy, I lost quite a few leaves, and I actually still do every single year. So in the winter, when the sun intensity, the heat, everything, the humidity, you can tell from my sparkles that I have right now, you like my sparkles, that they generally will slow down in growth and they will drop leaves. Now, it depends on how long your winter is, how dreary your winter is, how horrible your winter is. It depends on how many leaves you're going to lose. So for me, this year, going into this spring, I lost a lot of leaves off this guy because we had a very cold, very long, very cloudy winter here in Saskatchewan in a zone 3. So I did lose a lot of foliage, but the nice part about that is that the roots and kind of the storage mechanisms within the plant were resting. They weren't harmed at all. I cut back on my watering. I was only watering once every month and a half, 2 months. That's how dormant this plant went. And once I started watering him again, once the sunlight started coming out again, I gained all my foliage back. And that's exactly what will happen is you'll never have a bare stem all the way up. This foliage will regrow from this stem back here. So you don't have to worry about that. And don't fret if you're losing leaves. Just keep on taking care of it as you normally would. Now, when it comes to watering, this is one of the things where you want to be careful. You usually want them to dry out. And that's what I like to do because that is your safeguard against root rot. A tree of this size, I only have in a pot that's about 30 gallons. I don't know what that would be in liters. I'll put it right here as to what that would be in liters. But I typically have them in a relatively small container. I'd rather water more frequently than dump a bunch of water on and run the risk of him not using it. So there's that. One of the common things that you will see when you have moisture stress is actually red leaves. And I have that right now. And the reason being is because I let my fiddle leaf fig dry out. Don't worry about these red spots. They're not bad. They're actually edema, and it's the same edema that humans get. So what happens is the water is taken up by the roots and it's brought into our leaves. We know what a cell leaf looks like from past videos, and inside of this leaf we have the mesophyll. Inside of the mesophyll and some of the endo portions of the leaf, we have vacuoles. And we've talked about vacuoles before when we were talking about transplant shock. When those vacuoles lose their turgor pressure, which is essentially the amount or the volume of water within those cells, when that increases or decreases, it can affect the plant. In the event that the vacuoles aren't full, you end up with wilty or wilted leaves. This is very common in any vocal plant, and it's common when you have transplant shock. For the fiddle leaf figs, they are notorious for sucking up way too much water into their vacuoles and actually bursting them, similar to what you would have when you have edema. People with edema are taking on lots of water and they end up swollen. So the same thing happens with the vacuoles in our fiddle leaf fig plants, and especially on the new foliage. The new foliage in particular will have those red blots, and what those are is essentially the vacuole has exploded at that point. It's been disrupted and it's fallen apart, and it's made kind of like a scab or a blood clot within the plant. But because it's on the new leaves, what happens with leaves when they come out, before they get this really rigid, like if you've ever felt a fiddle leaf fig leaf, they're like paper. They feel fake actually. It feels kind of like cardboard. It's very, very, like you can hear it. It's very papery, very thick leaf. And so to get to this, we need to add cells, we need to toughen our skin up, we need to toughen up our cuticle and all that stuff. And so leaves will actually expand and more cells will be added to that leaf area. So what ends up happening, rather than you guys looking at my bottom of my chin, I'll just do some B-roll of it. But a new leaf is very malleable, very shiny, and nice. You could probably crumple it up a little bit. So it's very, very soft, and that softness just means that the plant is going to expand over time. And as it expands, those red dots are just going to disappear. So this is perfect timing for this video, because I actually have, sorry, I told you I was going to stop doing that. I actually have leaves that are halfway out of the red dot phase, and then I have leaves that are in the red dot phase, and then I have ones that are totally done with it that I know were red before. So don't not worry about that. It's called edema if you want to look it up. Completely normal, and something that's necessary in a cold climate or in a situation where you have the plants indoors. You want them to dry out. We don't have the same amount of gas exchange. We don't have the intensity of the sun. We don't have the same growth. We don't have as rapid growth if that plant compared to when it was outside. So in an indoor plant scenario, I'd rather you have edema than have root rot. End of story. And that goes for any plant. I'd rather you have edema than root rot, because edema goes away. It's ugly for a little bit. Root rot is a whole other mess in and of itself. And actually, one of the subscribers has asked me to do a video on root rot, so I'm going to do that. I'm working on that right now. So don't worry, I'm getting to it. So another really common issue that I have with these guys, and mostly in the summertime actually, is spider mites. And I notice a lot of the spider mites are typically on this area right here. So on the stem, there is kind of like a bark on this plant, and on that bark is where I typically find the webs. What I do is, because I can't shower this, if you typically have spider mites, I just suggest putting it in the shower. But in this situation, I don't have a shower big enough, obviously. But what I do is I actually will kind of pick at the bark and get rid of the layers of it. And then I will spray it down with, and this is for when I'm desperate and I love a plant so much, I will use this. Otherwise, I just use soap typically, or a hydrogen peroxide. I know I said hydrogen peroxide doesn't work. Talking in a garden setting, it doesn't work. It works great on houseplants. Houseplants are a lot more sensitive. They're not as tough as a cold climate flower or garden plant. Garden plants are a whole other beast unto itself. So in this case, I use Endol, the Safers brand. I love this stuff so much. So this is not organic, but it actually kills. That's the French side. Not that it matters, we're Canadian, but the Endol Safers brand controls from eggs to the adults to the babies. So it is reasonably priced and I love it so much. And this bottle lasts me forever, and I have a lot of house plants, literally everywhere. So yeah, spider mites are another issue, but again, what I do is I actually clean the stem off. So you'll see like the lower parts of the stem, I'll insert some footage of that. These lower portions of the stem, there have no bark on them. These newer portions do have quite a bit of bark on them still, and that's because I haven't had a spider mite issue since cleaning off these bottom leaves. Sun requirements. So this guy right now is in a west-facing window. Yeah, he's in a west-facing window. And I have him just off to the side. So I have the window is right here. Right here's my window. And this guy is up against the wall that the window's on. But I have him kind of turned, so his turn, like these leaves that are very flat like this, are kind of facing towards that window. And it's worked wonders for me. It's worked very, very well. And I've got some monster leaves off this baby because of that. Like, can we just take time to look at how, this is giant freaking enormous. So that's huge. It's bigger than my head. So yeah, I've got some big boys on here for leaves. So he's happy, he's healthy, he's doing great. Brown spots. So a lot of the rips and tears you see on my plant, so these ones, or these ones, or these ones. So these crispy edges are due to the watering that I'm doing. So I don't use filtered water for any of my houseplants. I think that's just ridiculous. Well, I mean, everyone has their own choice. I've got a lot of houseplants. I'm not gonna buy that much distilled water to water them, I'm sorry. They get tap water, and because of that and the salt concentration in my tap water, I get some brown leaves and I get some, you know, blotches and odd spots. This spot is from the sun, I'm pretty sure. When it was first starting to come out, when the springtime was happening, usually in the wintertime, I'll put him right in front of this west-facing window, and the sun was starting to get intense, and I ended up getting this on there. That'll never repair itself. It's done. It's there forever until this leaf falls off, which will probably happen this winter, honestly. And then, yeah, this crisping down here, I'd say probably hard water, or it could have been sunburn as well, but it's very hard to tell. The other thing, these ones. So I had an oopsie with this. I put my cat post right by this plant, and it resulted in me going to work one day and coming home to quite a few tattered leaves because, you know, they're very springy, and cats like that. So that's what happened there. So if you bump these, scratch these, pinch them between something, they're gonna go brown. They're gonna rip, they're gonna go sour pretty quick. Any kind of damage to the leaf will cause a disruption in the color and in the look of the leaf itself. Again, that's unfortunately there until a leaf falls off. I could take it off and you probably would never notice, but again, I don't mind. I look at what these plants look like in the forest and I think, huh, mine looks actually pretty good compared to what they look like in their native land. So yeah, he's happy, he's healthy, he's good to go. So that is where your brown spots usually come from. Water, over fertilization, again, we already know that from our tomato video. That's gonna show up on my outer leaves and it's gonna show up on my new growth. I don't have any of that, but that would be a sign of it. And then sunburn, very common if you have it in a window that's very bright and it's early spring and it's not used to that intensity of light, it's used to winter time. That is a sign of it as well. I think the last thing, and probably also just equally as important as the watering, the fertilizing, and the care for this plant, is actually cleaning the leaves. And so I clean my leaves once a month, and I actually clean it with my end-all or a hydrogen peroxide solution, because you might as well, if you got to clean the leaves anyways, you might as well do some pest revitalization at the same time. So that's what I do, is I just lightly spritz this down and then I wipe it off. I use a paper towel. I know that won't sit well with everybody, but I use paper towel because I don't want to spread disease. So I will wipe off a leaf or a section of leaves and then I'll change to a different cleaning cloth, just because you don't always know from plant to plant within your home who has what. So that's what I do in this scenario. So I actually just did this before the video and I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but this is approximately how much dust they collect. So I mean, it's quite a bit, and that's about a month's worth, and that's what I can get off. And I cleaned this off with the end all because I already know with this heat, I'm getting something in the house. Something's gonna come and kick this thing's butt eventually. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope it has, you know, convinced you that these are not scary plants. They're actually pretty wonderful. I've had this plant for years and I'm attached to it, and it is one of my favorite plants, honestly. It is. I don't care if they're not really popular anymore. I loved this before it was popular and I love it after. So it's a really great plant. It's relatively quick growing for a colder climate, which is not always the case for a lot of houseplants. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions about the fiddle leaf fig, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what we should name him. I haven't named him in 7 years. I'm not into that stuff. I don't know. But you guys can name him. I'm cool with that. I do need a stool to dust the upper leaves. Not that tall. It's kind of funny that I have a plant that large, but I like him. He's so pretty. He makes me happy. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Oh. Why do I have to be a redhead? I think this is like an actual redhead issue. It's my grandpa's fault. It literally is my grandpa's fault. He's Scottish and he sweats, and my mom sweats, and it's just my Scottish blood. No one else sweats. The French side doesn't sweat. The German side doesn't sweat. It's just the freaking Scottish. Hey, if I die and I don't make another video after this, it's because of the heat. I've just decided to curl up in a friggin' igloo somewhere. Ugh.